I, 16 female, was, to my knowledge, alone and taking a shower, as my parents had gone out to run an errand. I had the window in the shower slightly ajar so I could hear when my parents pulled into the driveway and opened the front door. About 5 minutes later, I heard the front door open and shut. My first thought was, "Oh, my parents are home," and I continued my shower. Foolish as I am, I didn't think twice about the fact that I didn't hear the car pull in. I finished not long after. I walked out the bathroom fully clothed, thankfully, and began skipping to the living room. Then on the couch seated was a middle-aged woman who I definitely did not know, drinking some of my older sister's juice, meaning she had been in our fridge unconsented. I was a bit too stunned to speak, not scared per se, as this woman looked harmless and appeared to be unarmed. I tried to reach for my phone on the dining table to call the police, but she stood up and blocked me. I could apprehend her if necessary. However, this woman easily looked like one of my mother's clients, and my mother has a tendency of letting people over without informing me beforehand, so I thought this could be another instance, so I was not overly concerned. The following conversation ensued. "You look just like your mother." I actually looked nothing like my mother. "Oh, but you have your brother's eyes." "I don't have a brother." "Ah, then you're your father's daughter. You would know better than me. I haven't seen him in 5 years." This was false, but I wanted to see if she knew this. "Who are you?" she asks me. "That's my question. Why are you in my house?" "Your house. You're a child. Don't speak to me like that. Where are your parents?" No joke, this woman really had the audacity to say this. "None of your concern. Kindly leave before I call the authorities." You, what kind of people raised such a snobby witch? "Excuse me? Mind your manners in my home? Move aside, please." I step around her and brush her with my shoulder as I grab my phone. She then begins banshee screaming that I have assaulted her by shoving her aside. I got my phone and was about to call my parents when I heard the garage door open. I thanked God and rushed to the door. I ran to my dad and started babbling about the strange woman who trespassed into our home while I was showering. Less than 20 minutes later, cops are pulling up to our home and this lady is escorted to the station. My dad had told her to stay put if she didn't want him to press charges. We then find out she is our new neighbor, and this was her attempt of getting to know us. I am mortified and express my opinion to my dad that he should press charges. The lady begins banshee screaming again that he said he wouldn't. After a quick look at our home security cameras, our case was proclaimed valid and my dad is pressing charges. I don't know the mechanics or specifics of it all, but I'm happy he took my opinion into consideration. Edit. I see the same comment that the door was not locked. It was. I swear I made sure everything was locked before I got in the shower. We have a very quiet lock on our front door, but a very creaky door itself. That's why I heard the door open. I honestly have no clue how she undid the lock. I'm sorry if I implied that I had left the door open, but no, that wasn't the case. My dad would never allow me. A little over 10 years ago, when I was a young carpenter, I met a guy who I'll call Chad. Chad was a new hire by the company I was working for and became my helper. We got along famously even though he was 10 years older than me. He didn't mind working under a 23-year-old carpenter as an apprentice. Chad and I had worked together for 6 months when he brought up the idea of starting a business together. He figured between the two of us, we could easily run a crew and build houses. After talking it over with my pregnant partner, we decided that it would be better for me to be an employee, but still a 50% partner for tax reasons and insurance purposes. Chad said that was fine with him, so we started laying out who would take care of certain aspects of the business. Chad was to be the guy to find work, as I look way younger than I am, and it doesn't instill a lot of confidence in the client to think their framer is 16. Chad was also to take care of payroll, insurance, and any other financial faction. My duties were simple: staff and run the crew and keep on budget, something that came easy to me. I was to be paid an hourly wage, as well as 50% of profit after all business expenses. I never took my profit draw, as I rolled it back into growing the company. Things were great for about 6 months. The crew was working well together. We had a few houses under our belts and a contract for a 10,000 square foot custom house with multiple outbuildings. Things were great. So Chad has never built a foundation, and we usually hired a crew to put the foundation in for us. As, like I said, Chad has never built one, and I personally hate concrete work. We couldn't get our normal foundation crew in, so I stepped up and said, "Screw it, I'll do it myself." The company we were building for is one of the best custom home builders around, and doing a good job on this house could mean that we wouldn't have to pound the pavement looking for work. Work would be given to us. Perfect arrangement. Until it wasn't. Chad started spending money like it was going out of style. He sold his 2500 Chevy pickup and bought a new Jeep Wrangler. He had the Jeep for about a month before he sank it in water while 4x4ing, and it caught on fire mysteriously a few days after. He received the insurance payout and bought a brand new Dodge 2500 Power Wagon, which he, in short order, sunk in water within a few weeks. I never noticed the red flags as Chad and I rarely spoke face to face. He was the business side, I was the get stuff done side. I finished the foundation and picked up the check from the builder. The builder said that we overbilled him by 25%, but he was happy with the work I done, but not to overbill again, as he doesn't like overpaying. As there may not be any money left at the end of the bill, I apologized and asked him to cancel the check and issue one for the work actually completed. He agreed too and said, "I'm so happy to have honest people working for me." I usually don't pick up the checks, nor did I ever really look at the books, as it wasn't in the scope of my responsibilities. This prompted me to log onto our corporate account and see that we are so far in the red that we couldn't afford to buy a red pen, let alone cover payroll. I showed up at Chad's house and tore a strip off of him. He apologized and promised to top up the account with his personal profit draw money. I went into work Monday to find the locks on our tool bin had been changed, my name removed from all accounts, and a letter taped to the tool bin stating I was dismissed from my duties for an undisclosed reason. I was furious. I was not aware that as a business partner I could be fired. I found another job quite quickly and tried my best to put it behind me. That's when I found out where the money was going and that Chad had been slandering my name around town, blaming me for the missing money, as well as a bunch of egregious statements about my work ethic, trade skills, mental stability, and home life. Now, I fastidiously tracked all of our interactions with a simple journal and had backups of the transactions of our business account. I also happened to have backups of all our texts, voicemails, and pictures of everything. This is the revenge part. I took the evidence to my father's lawyer friend who started a fraud embezzlement investigation through the CRA, Canadian Revenue Agency, Canada's IRS, and called the insurance provider to make sure they were being paid. They had never received anything. I called the builder whom we were building for and explained what was happening. He told me that Chad had essentially stolen around $30,000 for payment of work not completed and had broken into their office and stolen another $15,000 replacement value of equipment and tool. I did what anyone would do. I called the police. Police said they couldn't help me and said it was a civil case. And the builder said he wasn't going to sue as Chad had no money and it wasn't worth the headache. So I called his auto insurance company, sent them all the pictures of his sunk vehicles, texts about them, and a short video he sent of him lighting the Jeep on fire. Insurance company filed charges against Chad and won. Chad is on the hook for around $130,000. I've spent the last 9.5 years telling anyone who will listen about Chad, and I have had him essentially blacklisted from the carpentry industry around here. I have also looked up his criminal history, as it is public domain every 3 months or so, and make a point of showing up at his court proceedings or offering myself as a character reference for the Crown prosecution. So I've gone out of my way to remind Chad that he can't screw me over without repercussions. And no, this doesn't end here. Years have passed, and I am still mad. I received a call from a guy offering me a job. It was the builder that Chad screwed over, not remembering that we know each other after I explained who I was and this bridge is burnt due to Chad. He still offers me the job. Medical, dental, company van, gas card, corporate credit card. I accepted his offer. First order of business. Finds another way to screw with Chad. Through the grapevine. I find where he's living and working. New boss calls the company Chad is working for, and we found out that he is summarily fired. I get in touch with his landlord, explain how he operates, and Chad is evicted for unpaid rent. He was apparently a couple months behind. I also managed to get his girlfriend's phone number, call her and explain what this guy does to people, and his extensive criminal history, including, but not limited to, fraud, identity theft, insurance fraud, his many assaults, and his wanted picture published in the paper. Turns out she is the owner of his truck, primary operator, but he pays the insurance. He cannot insure a vehicle until he pays off what he owes for the fraud. She asks me what she should do. I say that I'll take care of it. I call the insurance provider, explain what is going on, for them to tell me he doesn't even have a license anymore. They void the insurance on his girlfriend's truck after speaking to her and set up a sting with the police. I personally got to be involved as I knew what was going on. So I sit and wait for the day it goes down. I roll up behind the unmarked police cruiser and quickly explain who I am and what my plans are. The police are thinking that they are just waiting to pull him over for driving without a license and no insurance. I said I'm going to call him immediately as soon as I see him. So he comes cruising out and I make the call. He actually picked up the phone to call me a bunch of names and the N-word. I am as white as the fresh fallen snow and promptly gets pulled over. Police issue a ticket for reckless driving, no seatbelt, no license, and using a handheld device. During this, the girlfriend pulls up and proceeds to give consent to search her truck. In the truck, they find multiple IDA, stolen credit cards, a couple ATM skimmer machines, and a fake police badge. He was arrested on the spot. Revenge over, right? Nope. Police then asked to search the residence he was living at. He moved into the girlfriend's house after I had him evicted from his own place. In the garage, they find a vast collection of stolen tools, a lot of which belonged to the builder I was working for from when he broke into their office, and they were all stupidly still labeled with the company's inventory control stickers. This brought on more charges, and he was remanded to police custody until his trial date. Well, justice is sometimes slow here in Canada, and his trial date was at the time 17 months into the future. Well, yesterday was his trial date, so my boss, who Chad ripped off, Chad's ex-girlfriend, and I attended the hearing just to see the man squirm. His judgment was 8 years in jail after being granted time and a half for time served, a $100,000 fine, 1,000 hours community service after release, and no possibility of parole. I got to watch him be taken away in chains twice. Never underestimate the fury of a quiet man. And screw Chad.